Welcome again to the Mike Cortson Show, the Dr. Michael Cortson program. I'm Dr. Mike. I got a special guest in the house, and you're going to like this.
My guest today is a good friend and Australian Hall of Fame golfer, Bruce Crampton. Bruce, thanks for being with me today.
Mike, thank you. It's good to hear your voice again. Got to know you out in California around PGA West, and haven't seen too much of you recently, but we've stayed in touch with email and phone calls, etc., and I'm proud to be on your show.
Oh, it's a real treat for me. For those of you who don't know Bruce, he was a PGA Tour player for many, many years. It's very successful. What do you got? 14 wins on the regular tour and 20 on the senior tour. I guess it's the Champions Tour now, right?
That's official wins, correct.
All right. And then we can go into all the international wins and whatever on top of that, and phenomenal career, just absolutely stellar career for by far. When did you get started in golf?
Oh, at the tender age of 12, which I thought was about the right age to start, or at least that's what I was told. But since then, of course, we see Tiger Woods beginning at 3 years of age. So I guess you can't start too young. But I was a member of what we call a local gang, not like it is today, just a group of kids that hang around and played together in the neighborhood. And we had started a collection of birds' eggs. And there was a local golf course about a mile away that had some swampy area around it. And I was down there with the guys one day looking for a bird's nest called a reed warbler. And I found some golf balls. I found out that I could sell those, and that was a means of pocket money, so my attention turned from trying to find birds' eggs to finding golf balls and tees. And I was able to sell them and buy myself a golf club or two, and eventually got a full set and started playing.
Yeah, and where was this?
It was in Sydney, Australia, at a golf course called Beverly Park, which is about 10 miles south of the main downtown area of Sydney, Australia.
Oh, and so you just started just hitting balls, and did you read anything or study anybody?
No, I didn't at that stage. Actually, the first club I owned was a hickory-shafted mid-iron, which was like a 3-iron, that I conned one of my mates out of. We were under his parents' house one day, which was kind of built up in the front, and saw this old Hessian golf bag with clubs in it, and I ended up with the mid-iron. I don't know exactly how that occurred, but I did, and the first round that I played with that with just one club on this Beverly Park course was a municipal course. I remember I shot 129. I hit it out of bunkers and putted with it and everything. But that was the initial round that I played.
Oh, it was one
and
club?
Then, yeah, with one club, and then there's a stormwater channel runs through this golf course on one section of it, and the tide backs up into it, and people, being a municipal course, would hit their balls in there, and I was eventually made the official ball boy, which allowed me to be the only one down there at the weekend to get their balls out of the creek, as we called it, for them, and for which I'd get 5 cents or 10 cents, sometimes 20 cents if they were the last of the big spenders, and or if the tide went out and there were a lot of golf balls in there, then I had more golf balls that I could sell. So that got me playing, and I was watching the people, and I eventually was asked to caddy for the club champion, which I did, and that got me down around the clubhouse, and the local pro took an interest in me and started teaching me, and then I spent so much time at the golf course, and then on, my mother used to say, you know, you ought to take your blankets down there and sleep down there. You spend so much time. But both my parents were happy for me to be at the golf course because I was off the streets. They knew where I was, and it was a good place for me to be.
So you got the bug early.
Yeah, I did. I really got the bug. It was a challenge. I had played other sports, been successful at other sports, represented my school in both football and tennis, and won swimming matches as swimming races as a Cub Scout. But golf was a challenge. It was something that I could never master, and yet I felt like I could, or I wanted to find out why, and it just got my attention, and I just loved it. I had a lot of help along the way, but I put a lot of time and effort into it, and it was very rewarding.
You never thought you couldn't do it?
Oh, there were days.
You would throw the clubs in the river and say, I'm done?
Well, like all young kids, I showed temper at times, but I mellowed over the years. And golf's that way. I think the game of golf is a lot like the game of life itself. There's peaks and valleys.
That's right where I was going with it, because I've found that to be true. You can learn more about somebody on a golf course, personality-wise, than you can learn anywhere else.
Exactly.
So,
and I've also believed that to be successful in any endeavor, no matter what it is, the same ingredients are required. Hard work and dedication, willingness to go the extra mile, etc., etc. And golf is no different than being successful in any other endeavor. The game is just played in a different arena, that's all.
Right, because there was a time when you took off from the PGA Tour and went on hiatus for several years in the oil business. Isn't that true?
Well, that's true. Actually, I was between a rock and a hard place with as for a lot of people that travel, it was very hard to be gone all the time with a family and maintain a good family life. And I felt like I needed to make a decision whether to turn away from golf or turn away from my family. And I didn't have an alternative, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I got to worrying about it and not sleeping, and actually got into a what was called a situational depression. And so that wasn't any fun, and but that was after I got away from golf, because I didn't do any preparation for it, and then eventually got in the oil and gas business and had a lot of fun in that. Finding a good flowing oil well in West Texas was as much fun as winning any golf tournament, because that hydrocarbons that we were drilling to about 4,500 feet below the surface of the earth, and to think that was on the surface down there, close to 200 million years ago, and then you find it and bring it to the surface as hydrocarbons. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'll bet. What was the first golf tournament you won? Do you remember?
The first tournament I won was called the St. George District Schoolboy Championship, and that took place in May of 1949.
Wow. And how many kids were in that tournament?
I don't know, not too many, because at that stage golf was not played in schools. A local pro that I mentioned, his name is Bill McWilliam, he started a schoolboy competition for the St. George District, which is the district in which my parents and I lived.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there he went on to a state schoolboy championship and then a national Australian schoolboy championship. And he became known as King of the Kids. And he was renowned for teaching youngsters. But I wouldn't say there were more than probably 10 or 12 or 15 youngsters played in that tournament, the first one.
Right.
But it got bigger and bigger, of course.
And you just kept entering tournaments?
Say again?
You kept entering tournaments? And,
yes. Well, yes, I did. I played, actually I was club champion at 15, and I went off and played. They had one-day events at many of the clubs in Sydney, in Sydney metropolitan area, and the country area. I traveled a little bit as a youngster, and also represented the state of New South Wales against Victoria, and then also Australia against New Zealand in international matches. And I won that schoolboy district championship 3 years in a row. And then in 1951, I also won the state schoolboy championship.
Wow.
And then I won the state junior championship in 1952 and 53, and that was for anybody under 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I had then joined an A-grade club called New South Wales Golf Club in Sydney, and was on their grade team, and actually I represented Australia as the number 2 player against New Zealand, and really should have been in the Eisenhower Cup team, I thought, and a lot of other people thought, to go to St. Andrews in 1953.
Mm-hmm.
But because of my age, the selection committee decided to not include me because they didn't want me, didn't think it was right for me to be around all the drinking and the socializing. So I had taken a sort of a temporary first job, if you will, at sporting goods company, who then offered me a good contract, nice contract, not by today's standards, but a nice contract for me, whereby I could turn pro. And by then, Australia's best player had kind of taken me under his wing, and he was also teaching me. So I had to serve a 2 years apprenticeship under Bill McWilliam. I served my apprenticeship with Bill, and I only actually worked a total of 2 days a week. I had half a day Saturday, half a day Sunday, and all day Monday, and the rest of the week I was free to go and practice and play. And then that's how so when I was left out of the Eisenhower Cup team, I decided that I'd turn pro. And I was promised a first trip overseas by Norman von Nieder, was the name of the Australia's best player at that stage. He recently passed away in his 90s, but he took two of us overseas in 1956 after I was a member of the PGA of Australia. And the first tournament I won as a full member of the PGA of Australia was the 1956 Australian Open Championship. Wow. And as a result of that victory, I was then invited to the 1957 Masters Tournament in Augusta National, and that is the reason that I came to the United States.
Wow, that's quite a jump from in such a short period of time. To have your first professional win be your national championship.
Yeah, that was pretty special.
I'll bet. And
well, there's more to the story, but we need to talk about other aspects. You know, this is not Bruce Crampton's life story. We've got some other things that we'd like to pass along to the people.
Yeah.
See, the story is just to not leave you hanging. Actually, the Peter Thompson, who had won 3 British Opens, I think, in by 1956, either that or 2 maybe, I don't know for sure, but anyhow, he did not play in the Open Championship that I won, and of course the press started to then, would Crampton have won the Open if Thompson had played? Well, 3 weeks later, it was the week of my 21st birthday in Melbourne. The next biggest tournament was called the Speedo Tournament. It was to be played in Melbourne, Australia, about 3 weeks after my victory in the Australian Open Championship, which was played in Sydney. And it was Peter's home course, Victoria Golf Club, where this 5-round tournament was to be played. After 3 rounds, Peter and I were tied, and it was a par 73 golf course, and we had to play 36 holes on Saturday.
Ouch.
And Peter shot 3 under in the morning round on Saturday, and I shot even par, so he had a 3-shot lead, and the scuttlebutt at lunch was, Thompson's going to win. Well, I had an unbelievable round in the afternoon. I don't know what caused it. I wish I knew, but I made 9 birdies and set a new course record and ended up winning the tournament by 4 shots.
Wow.
And, of course, that just elevated my stature, even more than being a young Australian Open champion.
Now, you go back into this thinking that you were doing at that time. Can you kind of recall a little bit of this zone that you got into?
Well,
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. It's a matter of preparation and being confident. I had put in a lot of time and effort practicing and preparing. I'd just come back from overseas, and I had all that experience and the victory at the Australian Open in Sydney, where I actually birdied the last 2 holes to win that tournament. Mm-hmm. So I was full of it, if you understand what I mean. I was extremely confident, but also in golf you have to be extremely lucky. And I got some good bounces, and I made some good putts at the right time, and there's nothing like success. It just feeds on itself.
Right.
And I happened to be striking the ball exceptionally well. I was fit, healthy, and had everything to gain and nothing to lose, and it was just good thinking and good execution, being able to set myself apart from what was going on around me and just concentrate on each shot one after the other as they came along. For after all, the You can only stay in the present out there. It's no good thinking about what's going to happen at the 18th fairway or the 18th tee if you're on the 6th hole of the final round. You can only do anything about the shot that's coming up.
Right.
And that's what I was able to concentrate on.
And that parallels life a lot. People get so hung up about what's going to happen in the future that they forget about what they're doing right now, and then they start messing up, and they kind of trips themselves up to actually achieve what it is they really wanted to do.
Well, exactly. The one thing that, and I'm not exceptionally well educated, but academically, but there's more than one way to get a good education, and one of those ways, of course, is traveling, being around a lot of people, rubbing shoulders with a lot of successful people, and be able to have interesting conversations with them. And I think a lot of it has to do of learning that one can control one's thoughts, and what we think has a big bearing on our feelings.
Right.
And I use a classical example of that. If I was to put down a plank of wood, say a foot wide and 2 inches thick on the ground, I wouldn't have any trouble walking along that at all. But put that plank, if you will, 20 feet up in the air, suspended between two ladders, and then ask me to walk across it, now I'd get pretty jittery because I introduce another thought, the thought of falling and hurting myself.
Right.
And that changes the way you feel. And I use that sort of thing to my advantage on the first event I won on the senior tour in 1986 in San Antonio, Texas at the Dominion. I had been listening to some tapes about golfing out of your mind and remembered a lot of things. In the last round, I remember we're coming to the 16th hole, and I was tied with Bob Charles, and I hadn't won in 7.5 years, and a lot of people, well, I hadn't played in 7.5 years really, to get in the thick of it, and a lot of people questioned whether I'd ever be able to win again. Well, on the 16th hole, Bob actually took 3 from the edge of the green, made bogey, and I made par, so it gave me a one-shot lead. The 17th hole was a 3-par into the wind with water on the left and a kind of a hogback green and bunkers on the right. And it was into the wind, and as I started to walk to the 17th tee, I caught myself thinking, Bruce, you better be careful. And I said, whoa, now wait a minute, Bruce, you got to change those thoughts. This is what I'd learned on those tapes. And so I told myself, Bruce, don't let this opportunity get away from you. You go ahead and seize the opportunity to win this golf tournament. And the best way to do that is to make 2 on this next hole. Well, lo and behold, I hit a beautiful tee shot in there about 10 feet from the hole. Bob Charles put it to the right in the bunker and ended up making another bogey. And I hold the putt for 2. So now I go to the last tee, which was a layup 5-par with a 3-shot lead. And I've thought about that so much by changing my thought and thinking about a way to win the golf tournament or finding a way to win it rather than a way to lose it. It changed my degree of confidence and how comfortable I was standing on that 17th tee.
Right. And how many did you win that year in 1986?
In '86 I won 7. I think that was the year that I was the senior champion. I was the senior player of the year.
That's right. So that carried over from that one tournament, and you learned the lesson and took it through and made an accomplishment that hardly anybody can even hope to achieve at the level of golf that you play. Well,
thank you. I appreciate that. It was quite a revelation to me to finally be sure enough to understand how one's mind plays such an important role in one's life. The thoughts that we choose to put in our mind, and that is something that we can control.
Right. Well, we see that on the Pro-Am days. You see all these guys out playing with the people who pay to play in the Pro-Ams, and they're terrible. But the professionals are so at ease and relaxed, and they just seem to hit the ball dead straight. Everything's just like perfect. And then Thursday morning, when they started making the announcement and all the chips are on the line, they start falling to the wayside one by one, talking themselves out of it.
Well, of course, you've got to have good technique and you've got to be lucky. But getting back to the Pro-Am days, the first thing I tried to do was settle my partners down, and we'd start out usually with some funny stories or some light-hearted conversation on the first tee, and I would tell them that, look, I don't know anything about flying an aeroplane, a commercial airliner like a 747, but if I spent 40 years in a cockpit practicing it every day, 8 to 10 hours a day, hopefully at the end of that time I would know something about it.
Right.
Now, I said, I admire how you people make so many important decisions involving, billions of dollars. That's something that's foreign to me. So, this is relaxation for you. Just come out here and let's enjoy it. You're in my office today. Let me worry about it, and you just have a good time. And if you'd have spent, as I said, the number of hours on the golf course that I have, you would be able to do it as well as I can.
Well, there's some God-given talent in there too, besides the tenacity and the stick-to-itness that you had.
Yeah, but I believe that if you want to, I think it begins with thoughts. If you can think of something, it's possible to do it.
Right. Well,
one little piece at a time. Going back to the 747, that's what I used to tell my two sons when we lived in Dallas. I said, look, if I told you we were going to build a 747, you'd think I was nuts. But I said, if we went over there to Addison Airport, rented enough space, were able to afford to buy all the parts and get the manuals and read them and put them together piece by piece, if we worked at it every day, piece by piece by piece, I said, eventually we'd have a 747. And I said, that's the way your life is and that's the way your future is. Just like when we built a new house. It was out in the woods. The first thing we had to do was cut down the trees and make the space, and then contractors came in and did one thing and each day and kept going, and eventually it was time to landscape the place, and we had a new house. And that was just done one piece at a time. It didn't happen overnight.
All right, but it's a winning thinking that you put together that got you through this career, and you did well in every aspect of your life, though, because it carries over into everything that you've done.
Well, you use it a lot. There's no doubt about that, Mike, in everything that you do. And a lot of it's common sense and making good decisions and not inviting trouble. You are human. You're not a machine. And taking good care of yourself, I think, good health and good eating habits and exercising and getting proper rest, that's all part of it, too.
Yeah, a good balanced life.
Exactly.
A good balanced life. And I see
but again, it's also true that you'll only get out of it what you put into it. And if you want a lot out of something, whether it's a marriage or a relationship with your son or a business relationship, you got to be willing to put a lot into it and make a lot of sacrifices in order for that to be successful. But you will be rewarded.
That's true. Absolutely true. And I see a lot of people that get sidetracked in so many different directions that they really have never picked one thing and said, you know what, I'm going to go do this today and I'm going to do this well. And they just fall by the wayside. And then wonder why they never succeed at anything.
Well, I also think there's another aspect to that, and my philosophy anyhow, and these are just my opinions, Mike.
Sure.
I'm not a professional by any way, shape of imagination. I think that it's also important to put forth your best effort. I have found in my life that if I do the very best I can with whatever it is I'm working on or trying to accomplish, I can never second-guess myself by looking back, because no human being is capable than giving more than 100%. So no matter what it is, just do the very best you can, and you can never second-guess yourself or have any regrets. Now, some days it will work, some days it won't. But as long as you give your best, none of us are experts in every field of our life. So some things you try, but I can tell you in my life, it's been great for me to no matter what I accomplish, whether it's making a pretty garden around my house or building a rock wall and making things look nice, even cutting the grass nicely so that it all looks nice. You get a great sense of accomplishment after you do that. And I think I found that was important when I was going through this stage with depression that we talked about, is to pick on something that you could accomplish and see it through, and just no matter what it was, just accomplish it. That gave you a psychological lift, and it also got you back into that thinking, well, I can do this, and instead of, no, I can't do this, and I've got all these things that I would like to do, and I don't get any of them done, and I'm no good, and that's wrong thinking. If you think about what you've accomplished and keep trying to accomplish, then you're going to feel pretty good about yourself, and you can hold yourself high and stick your chest out and say, I'm a good person.
There you go. And did you see this a lot in the other players that you played against?
Well, I saw it not only in the players, I saw it in all the successful businessmen that I played with. And I played with quite a number of top executives from the top 500 companies in the United States. And I would talk to them when I got the opportunity about, first of all, what they liked about golf, what attracted them to golf. And the underlying theme there was the challenge of it. Any successful person likes a challenge.
Right.
And they like the challenge of golf, which we talked about before.
Yeah.
And so then also it was great relaxation for them. While they were out on the golf course, they didn't think about the office. You can't.
Right.
Because you got to play on each shot. It's different than other sports, whereby a ball is thrown at you or hit towards you or a puck or whatever it is, and you've got an instant to make a quick decision and react.
Right.
Golf is different. That little white sphere is not going to move until you make a pass at it with the golf club. Mm. So it's a different type of sport, but it's a tremendous challenge, and they loved that. They loved the fact that it was a constant challenge to them.
I've found that the best decisions in the world have either been made on golf courses or in bathrooms.
Well, I guess you're right. I hadn't thought about the bathroom, but... Yeah.
Well, I have a phrase I tell people. I say, when in doubt, pee. It can't hurt. I give you a chance alone to where you can actually think and take your mind off of other stuff.
Well, that's true.
Well, I thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and I just love the examples that you gave us, and I wish you the best of luck and more and more success, and keep sharing these great pearls of wisdom with anyone and everyone you come into contact with.
Well, thank you, Mike. I am, as a matter of fact. I don't play anymore, but I am teaching a young girl here in Maryland, a 15-year-old young girl who's kind of in an unfortunate situation. She lost her mother in the spring of 2005 to pancreatic cancer, and her father, who's a lovely gentleman, is left to raise two girls. She has a sister that's 3 years younger than she is. And Caitlin Rohrbach is her name, and she won the Maryland State Junior Girls Championship last year in 2006. So I was asked to take a look at a swing, and when her father asked me who I could recommend to teach her in this area, I got to thinking, and I couldn't think of a good tournament player who was doing that in Maryland, and I just felt, and maybe I'm prejudiced, but I felt a good tournament player was better equipped to help her get to the level that she was trying to get to, because of being able to say, been there, done that.
Right.
It's not a situation that I had been, that she could get herself into that I hadn't experienced. So I said, I'll help her all I can, and I'm really enjoying it. She's a lovely little girl, and she reminds me of myself so much as far as hard work and dedication and practicing. I mean, she just spends every minute that she can possibly get on the golf course, practicing and putting and chipping and everything. So I'm having a lot of fun with that and trying to pass along any knowledge that I can to this young girl.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I really appreciate it.
No, okay,
I'd love
Mike.
to have you back again sometime.
All right, keep the funnies coming, and we'll talk to you downstream.
Sound good. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Feel free to email me at mike@michaelcortson.com with any show suggestions or comments. I appreciate it. And check out my website, www.michaelcortson.com. You take care. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.